Hello everybody and welcome to this short tutorial on geometric vocabulary. We will review this to get ready for Unit 2, on formulas and constructions. Our objective is we will be able to recall essential geometric terms. Point. A point has no dimension and it is represented by a dot. So we would draw a dot and name it by a capital letter. We can then also call it point A. And the letters that we use for points always have to be capital letters. Always capital letters. A line. A line has one dimension and it is basically made up by points. We can also say it is a set of points. It is represented by two arrowheads, and those two arrowheads indicate that it continues in both directions until infinity. It is never ending. Let me draw a line with two arrowheads at the end, and let's put a couple of points on there that will help us to name it. So now there are a couple different ways to name this line. We can use a letter, a lowercase letter. In this case, I used L. And so we can either call this the line L, or we can also write it as short little line over the 2 points A and B, which are the points on this line. A plane has 2 dimensions, and it's actually a set of lines. Do you see the pattern there between point, line, and plane? The way we draw it, the way it's represented, it looks a little bit maybe like a floor or like a wall. And the plane is also never ending. It continues in all dimensions until infinity. So even though a plane is never ending, like I just said, we can't draw it that way. So we usually draw it like something like a parallelogram, and we can name it in different ways. We can put a letter in one of those corners of the plane that's never ending. So remember, it is actually never ending, even though we draw it as a parallelogram. Or we can put some points inside of it, and then we could either call this plane M or plane A, B, C. Collinear points. Collinear points are points on the same line. And you see the word line in here in the word collinear, right? And co means together, just like your co-worker. Points that are on the same line are collinear points. And Let me draw a line and put a few collinear points on it. But in order to show collinear points, you don't necessarily have to draw the line. You can also draw points like this, points D, E, and F, that if you were to connect them, you would get a line. And these points are also collinear. Coplanar points are points on the same plane. And you can also find the word plane in coplanar. And the points on the same plane, the coplanar points, on the other hand, do not necessarily have to be collinear, because remember from above, a plane has many lines. Let me draw a plane with a few coplanar points, A, B, and C. And again, we can also do the same thing, draw 3 points that are coplanar without actually showing the plane. A line segment is a part of a line that has 2 endpoints. We draw the line segment with those 2 endpoints on both ends. Name those points to help us name our segment. And this segment we would call segment GH, or we could also call it segment HG. Please note that the line above the G and H doesn't have any arrows because it indicates the line segment, and the line segment has endpoints and doesn't continue in either of the 2 directions. And that's exactly what an endpoint is. The endpoint is a point at the end of a segment or at the end of a ray. Now what's a ray then? A ray has 1 endpoint. A line segment has 2 endpoints. A ray has only 1 endpoint. That means it goes on forever in the other direction. Let's look at these 2 rays, and we're also going to give them points and name those points to help us name the ray. The first ray is called ray JK, and you indicate that by a line over the letters with 1 arrowhead. And the other ray is called ray QR. Please note that here for the rays, it's important that the first letter that comes first is not by alphabet, but it is the letter of the endpoint. Note that this is the end, J is the endpoint of this ray, and Q is the endpoint of this ray, and that's why those 2 letters have to be the first letter when we name that ray. Opposite rays make a line. Let me draw ray ST. And to the opposite direction, ray SR. The rays ST and SR are opposite rays, and together they create a line that goes on in both directions forever. An intersection is like a crossing. Think about two streets crossing each other, and it can be a point or a set of points that two objects have in common. This can happen in many ways. For example, two lines can have an intersection, and then point P is at the intersection. We can have an intersection between a plane and a line. The line crosses the plane. I'm going to indicate with dotted line where it's behind. And even two planes can cross each other. And then this section is the intersection between the two planes. Between, when 3 points are collinear, then 1 point is between the other two. Let's draw this line with points X, Y, and Z. And Y is between X and Z. The segment addition postulate. Actually, you guys already worked with the segment addition postulate when you were working on the summer packet. B is between A and C if and only if, and you remember this from Unit 1, don't you? AB plus BC is equal to AC. Now let's draw a line and see what we're talking about here. If on this line we have points A, B, and C, then we have two segments. We have the segment A and B, and we have the segment B and C. And adding those two segments together, we get the segment AC. Think about the situation when you're trying to measure something with a ruler, but your ruler isn't long enough for the entire distance. So you probably have done this before many times. Put down the ruler, mark the end of it, and then start again. And this way you are measuring segments and afterwards adding those segments together. Well, that's it for our vocabulary, and I will see you in class.